Formula One fans are left speechless as Red Bull's decision to remove Christian Horner from all his roles takes center stage. But if you look closer, this didn't happen overnight. Signs were there, just not loud enough until now. Behind the scenes, it seems a storm had been brewing for quite some time. What's making even more noise now is something that once felt like fantasy. Max Verstappen heading to Mercedes? That's no longer just a rumor. It's starting to feel like a genuine possibility. And now, people are beginning to wonder, was Toto Wolff simply being patient and waiting for the right moment while everyone else was panicking? If that's true, it could be a masterstroke on his part. But then the bigger question arises, if Max actually joins Mercedes, who steps aside to make space for him at the Brackley team? The Formula One world has seen its fair share of surprising headlines, but this one is cutting through everything else right now. Although Horner's exit is the headline, the real story may be what comes next. And it's not looking good for Red Bull, with Max Verstappen now strongly connected to Mercedes. Even more so after this shakeup, the future suddenly looks shaky. Just a day before Red Bull dropped the bombshell, Mercedes CEO Ola Kleinis gave his team the all-clear to go full throttle in their pursuit of Max. That speaks volumes about how seriously they're taking this. Previously, Wolff and Verstappen had a kind of handshake understanding, but Mercedes' top management wasn't fully on board. They didn't want to give up on George Russell, their long-term project, or their rising star, Kimi Antonelli. However, Verstappen becoming available, especially while he's still at his peak, is a rare chance. That may have been enough to push Mercedes' top brass to change their minds. Christian Horner's removal might be the spark, but there's far more under the surface pushing Max Verstappen to think about a switch. Red Bull doesn't look like the team it used to be. Let's face it, things are falling apart. Key figures like Adrian Newey, Rob Marshall, Tim Goss, and Dan Fallows have left or announced plans to leave. These were the architects of Red Bull's dominance. Their exit tells a story, and it's not a good one for Red Bull fans. Take a look at what Marshall has already managed to do over at McLaren, or what Fallows is building at Aston Martin. It's no coincidence. These people helped shape Red Bull into a championship machine. Without them, keeping the same level of performance becomes nearly impossible, and Max knows that. When a driver sees his team starting to lose key technical talent, it becomes hard to stay optimistic. This brings us back to Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton went through something similar. When his feedback about the car was ignored and development didn't go in the direction he believed was right, he made a bold move. He didn't wait around. He went to Ferrari. He knew staying put wouldn't get him closer to winning again. Max could be thinking the same way. According to Lewis himself, a move like this might be the right step for Verstappen, Hamilton said. Max has done everything he needed to do to prove himself as a champion. Moving to a new team at this point wouldn't be a step backward. It could be the next challenge he needs. Hamilton didn't stop there. He spoke highly of Mercedes, praising their passion, talent, and strong work culture. In his words, they've got the right environment for a top-level driver to succeed. He even admitted that if not for Max, Red Bull wouldn't be anywhere near the front of the grid. That says a lot. With Red Bull's technical structure falling apart and uncertainty growing by the day, Verstappen's management team appears to be shifting focus. They've made it clear, performance is now the priority. Interestingly, they didn't say that this performance would strictly come from Red Bull. That's a hint. If they're willing to sit down with Mercedes engineers and decision-makers, like Toto Wolff and Mike Elliott, it means serious talks could already be underway. From the way things are shaping up, if Max likes what he hears and sees in Brackley, we could be witnessing one of the most dramatic team changes in recent Formula One history. His representatives confirmed they were informed ahead of Horner's dismissal. While they didn't publicly criticize the move, the way they phrased their statement suggests their focus lies elsewhere. Now, what matters to them is getting Max into a competitive car. If Red Bull can't offer that in the near future, especially after losing core personnel, Mercedes becomes the logical alternative. The situation surrounding Horner, though still unclear in terms of details, has created a vacuum in leadership. Max's influence is now stronger than ever. If Red Bull still wants to compete at the front, they might have no choice but to give him even more control over key decisions. But again, is that enough? Verstappen isn't the type of driver who waits around hoping things get better. He needs proof, and with 2026 just around the corner, a year expected to reset the technical field, the timing of his decision will be crucial. This is where Mercedes could have the upper hand. Even though they struggled at the beginning of the ground effect era, they've managed to rebuild in a relatively short time. Their approach to long-term car development, backed by past success in engine design, suggests they may have a stronger base heading into the next regulation cycle. The interesting part is that Mercedes didn't always have a clear path to Verstappen. Earlier this year, when Wolff expressed interest, internal resistance came from the board. They didn't want to lose George Russell, who's been with them since his junior career, or Kimi Antonelli, their highly rated young talent. But something shifted. The sudden availability of Verstappen, arguably at the peak of his performance, changed everything. Ola Kleinis, the CEO of Mercedes-Benz, gave the team full freedom to chase Max. That kind of green light doesn't come easily, especially from someone known to be cautious with big decisions. But this is Verstappen. You don't get chances like this twice. And for Mercedes, the timing couldn't be better. They're gearing up for 2026 and need a proven winner in the car. If they're going to fight back for titles, they can't rely on potential alone. They need a driver who can bring results immediately. Red Bull, on the other hand, might be bracing for a rough ride. With Horner gone and the team already weakened by departures, they're staring down a major rebuild. Laurent Mekies, previously with Racing Bulls, is being positioned for a more central role. That tells you a restructure is already in motion. Some even believe Red Bull is preparing for a future without Max. If that's the case, expect big changes. There's talk of giving Iemu Iwasa, or even Arvid Lindblad, a shot alongside Yuki Tsunoda in the worst-case scenario. Red Bull might lose its main star and be left trying to rebuild both the car and its reputation, something that doesn't happen overnight in Formula One. For Verstappen, staying at Red Bull might not make sense anymore. And if Mercedes is promising a stronger car and more technical clarity going into 2026, that's a hard offer to ignore, even if it comes at the cost of displacing Russell. Now comes the real dilemma. If Verstappen chooses Mercedes, what happens to George Russell? This isn't just about swapping one driver for another. Mercedes has invested years into Russell's growth. He was their chosen one after Hamilton, the driver they trusted to carry the team forward. Letting him go wouldn't just be a personnel change, it would shake the foundation of their driver development program. It would also send a strong message to every young talent in their system. No spot is truly guaranteed, but when Verstappen is on the table, even long-term plans can be torn apart. The question is whether Mercedes sees him as the key to returning to championship-winning form. If the answer is yes, they might make that sacrifice. Antonelli, the other young driver in the picture, is still developing and keeping him around, while also securing Verstappen. Might be Mercedes' version of playing it safe and bold at the same time. Still, there's one factor that can't be ignored: 2026. Everything changes that year. From power units to chassis, it's a total overhaul of the sport. Even the strongest teams today could fall behind. While Mercedes has a strong record with engine development, there are no guarantees. As Horner pointed out before his exit, nobody truly knows who will lead once the new rules arrive. So for Verstappen, it's not just about moving teams, it's about taking a calculated risk. If he gets it wrong, he could find himself stuck in a struggling car. But if he times it right, he could extend his dominance for years. Red Bull, without Horner, already looks unstable. And if more senior figures follow him out, the situation could worsen quickly. Verstappen has to decide if it's worth staying and leading a rebuild, or moving to Mercedes to chase more titles with a team already preparing for the future. Whatever happens, this decision will define the next chapter of Formula One. And if Max chooses silver over red and blue, it might just turn the sport on its head once again.